Hello, friends. Molly Pompidith here, CEO of the SOAR Community Network and co-founder of the SOAR Community Nebula. We are bringing to you champions of change and community builders who are doing some wonderful things for their community and for society as a whole. And today I am delighted to bring to you my friend, Shelley Brown. Thank you so much for being with Shelley.
Thank you for having me, Molly.
So we met recently, and in this 1 year we met, and it was like an instant connection. And I would like for you, because that's the work that you do, helping people feel safe, connected, grounded, giving them a sense of wellness, excuse me, in their lives. So please share with us what drove you to that work, who you are in the world, and how are you community building for your community.
Thank you, Molly. So what drove me to this work is I always thought that everything in my mind was the truth. And basically, I was living in my own narrative and not questioning whether the thoughts that were taking place in my head were the truth. And so basically, instead of having my narrative be a story, I lived in that. And so I felt very, very stuck in this narrative because I never questioned. I never questioned, and I didn't know that I could. And through many different circumstances, I really looked at the world like it was a clothing store of identity, as if I were shopping at different stores to help me have a sense of who I was in this world. And so I would just try on a different identity because who I really felt that I was not something that I felt confident enough to present to the world, something that I felt some shame, I felt some, not good enough kind of things like that. And it showed up for me over and over and over. And what I came to realize is that when we live in a sustained period of stress, and I actually had a spinal injury. When we live in a sustained period of stress, we become very reactive. We don't really respond. We don't contemplate and have the space of choice on which to base our decisions or on our reactions. We don't question. So everything becomes really reactive because we're not processing information through our prefrontal cortex to be scientific. So we're not making decisions about the stimulus, whether it's external or internal. And so I was just basically letting my emotions and my thinking rule my life. And I came to the practice of mindfulness because my wires were so crossed, and I thought that that's just the way that I was, that I was just this really, really high-strung, anxious person. I thought that something was really wrong with me and that was just my lot in life. And I went to a mindfulness-based stress reduction program where I was told that essentially with the stress response, your wires kind of get crossed, and it's not a cognitive thing. It really is a physiological reaction to stress. And that was the most important thing I'd ever heard, because I thought, wow, this really isn't the way that I am wired. My wires can be reset. And so I went through this program, and it was so transformative and life-changing that I said, I have got to find a way to invite people to explore this practice. And so I made it a mission to study as much as I could. And you never arrive, so you continually study and cultivate your own practice. And I also knew that the most important things to me were to make it as inclusive and accessible as possible, so that I could extend this invitation to as many people as possible without making people shy away because they thought it was weird or thought it was mystical or spiritual or religious. I wanted to make it as inclusive as possible, and that's my mission.
So how do you do that? What programs, how do you go about getting people to explore this whole necessary, I believe, aspect of life, which is to feel as if they really are spending time with self-care, self-actualization, and centering themselves? How does one get to the point when they know they even need your services? That's the question, right? Because
Yeah.
you can talk about what you do, you can talk about mindfulness, you can invite people in, but how do they get ready? Where are they in their lives where they're like, yep, that's for me?
Thank you for asking. So I think first and foremost, most people will readily admit that at a minimum they're distracted. And so, asking the question, do you feel stress in any area of your life? If you ask a room full of people, the majority of hands will go up, if not all of them. If you ask people at a minimum, do you feel distracted? I would venture to say that almost every hand comes up. And then another question, do you sense that it has an impact on any area of your life? I would venture to say that almost everybody's hand goes up. And so I do ground my invitation in the scientific research. And then I also have sort of a trademark way of introducing what this is, because as mainstream as it is, there's still a lot of confusion around what this whole mindfulness thing is. I mean, I have been told, go to HR, they handle the chair massage. Go to, this is something people do at home. And so I think one of the most universal languages we have in life is music. And so I actually use music to introduce people in a very short practice what mindfulness is, and use that as a metaphor for the invitation is really pay attention, inviting people to pay attention to one particular instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you notice? And a lot of people will notice distraction, whether internal or external. Long story short, it's a metaphor for what mindfulness is, which is really extending time in the present. And what are the implications of extending time in the present? And I think everybody could resonate with, if I am in the present, I'm not distracted by fear and worry. I'm not distracted by regret and remorse. I'm not going through my Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn feed. I am right here. And what can that do to help me show up better for everyone?
That's brilliant. I love how you simplified that. It's extending the present moment because it's so fleeting. And I love the fact that when we're practicing mindfulness, it feels like you can just hang there for as long as you need to feel that sense of calm or shift or whatever it is that you need to do in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you now more of a personal journey back in time. When in your life have you experienced kindness, compassion, empathy from another mindful leader? And how have they influenced you or shifted your perspective in a profound way to make you the human that you are today?
Thank you for asking me that. Again, I would have to go back to the facilitator of the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, who sat with me when I felt so broken, when I had gone around life, fix me, rescue me, save me, help me. And to be told and assured that there was nothing wrong with me, that all we really, really needed to do was get those wires that had been really messed up in a whole big ball, and that we really could reset them. That changed everything for me. That wasn't, you need antidepressants, you need, whatever it was, you need to listen to 100 TED Talks, you need to do affirmations. It was like all within me, and nothing was wrong. It just had to be a reset.
That's powerful. I often think about what our actions, what our programs, what our offerings could do for a single soul, and how important it is, because many times we think about our audacious goals and we want to shift a whole community or society or the world. But I love the idea that this instructor, this facilitator, changed your life. So now you're able to, in your lifetime, with each client you have, one at a time, can impact hundreds, if not thousands. And I think that's worth noting for this interview series, because we're talking about community change agents and we're talking about ripple effects. So I think that's brilliant that you focused on one person when you answered that and how much they've shifted you. As you think of other community builders and champions of change and for change, what are some of the characteristics that are consistent? What have you witnessed over time that you can just check off almost every time with these personalities, with these souls?
Oh, it's going to make me cry. I think there's probably two attributes that I value the most. And when I see people who are aligned with those, that just really, really speaks volumes to me. And it's love and honesty. And the leaders that I really admire the most are aligned with those, because I truly believe that one can't value both love and honesty exclusive of each other. If you're honest without love, that's not love. If you say you love and you're not honest, that's not honesty. I think I said that the right way. If you're honest without love, that's not love. And if you're loving without honesty, that's not honesty. So hopefully I said it right. But
you did.
Those two things, no matter what the walk is in life, whether it's a friend, whether it's a leader, whether it's, somebody who's doing some epic things with inviting and being so inclusive with all of us, those are the two things that I think everybody can really tell, whether they notice it in their minds or in their hearts when somebody is walking their talk.
As a community builder and change agent yourself, what causes do you care about? How are you using your gifts and talents and resources, of course, within your practice? But are there other initiatives or specific organizations that you are gifting your treasures to, and how?
Thank you. So one of the ways that we are both familiar with is the Humans First movement, which I think is just this collective us who really, really, really care and really value the human being, with love and compassion and in so many ways. And I've been fortunate enough to speak at a Humans First and to be involved in that community. Another one that we're both familiar with is Overcoming Odds. And I love how Overcoming Odds, the events, the podcast, really ask us to share what has happened in the past, because I think that's one of the starting points of people relating in a very authentic way, and then pivoting to what happened, how did that change and transform you into why you do what you do now in service of others. So I think it is a very, very authentic movement that really invites people in. I think we all have a voice, and there's people who are reaching their hands out, and the hands that are going to extend and back out to us are the ones that really need to hear our specific message or voice, And I love that. I also do some volunteer work here in Baltimore at the Allman Foundation, which is a beautiful free home where people can stay when they're getting chemo and radiation at Johns Hopkins, so young people and their families can stay. And I volunteer there and do guided meditation with the people staying in the home. And I really love doing that. And I also, in my community, have a mindfulness meditation group on Sunday evenings.
Thank you so much for doing that, for volunteering your time. For someone who has had cancer in her family, and making those treks and sitting and waiting for 2-3 hours while treatment is being done. Having a safe voice to help you with guided meditation or presence, I can imagine that just changes everything.
Mm.
So, Shelley, I know a little bit of your background story, and I know that things have not always been easy. In fact, many things have not been easy in your life at all. And yet you are triumphant and you are positive. When those challenging times come, is there a mantra or a motto or a quote that you go to, or maybe even scripture that you go to that grounds you and gets you back to center, that you can share with our community, so when they're feeling down, they can perhaps borrow this mantra or motto or quote?
Thank you. So the biggest thing I reflect on is we're not our circumstances. And that really comes from the book of Job. And it comes from the lesson from the book of Job, but it also becomes embodied through the practice of mindfulness. So I would have to say that remembering that helps us remember impermanence, that there is nothing permanent, and that we are not our circumstances, because everything changes and we have choice. And I used, as somebody who felt so stuck in life, I don't believe that there's any such place as stuck.
Beautifully said. What would a better world look like through your eyes?
A better world would look like people understanding, one, that they can take responsibility for their own well-being, and that waiting for a utopian world, waiting for perfect cultures, perfect leaders, perfect lives, waiting for stuff outside of themselves, while we do need to make some real shifts in this world, there's a lot of things we as individuals can do to suffer less, so that we can bear witness to our stories and not tell them, but share them in service of others.
How can our community support you right now, Shelley? And what is the best way to connect with you, learn more about you, and reach you?
Thank you so much. I am going to be rebranding. I don't know if I have a second to tell you what I'm doing, but I'm rebranding to Naked Mindfulness. And it's not to be provocative. It's about naked and stripping away the thoughts that put barriers between who we really are and how we really, who we really are, as opposed to the ways that we think we need to show up, or the ways we think that other people perceive us. So it's naked mindfulness. And lastly, it's naked mindfulness, in that it's very much a stripped down, accessible, and inclusive invitation to this practice. I really don't say that I help people. I invite people. People help themselves. So right now it's roimindfulness.com. I'm active on LinkedIn. And also, please feel free to reach out to me personally at Shelley with an EY Brown at roimindfulness.com.
Thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you.
And for your honest sharing Thank you so much for being so present. I guess it's the practice that you're in and what you do. It makes sense why you're so poised. And I appreciate that very much. So thank you, Shelley, for your time today. Really appreciate everything that you do and everything that you are. For those that are watching, please remember to nominate yourself or someone in your community who's making a huge positive shift in your world. We'd love to feature them and have them share their mission, their vision, and align with your values. Please nominate yourself. Visit us at nebula.soarcommunitynetwork.com. Thank you so much.